What happens when you casually post your opinion on Facebook about COVID-19, the government response, lockdowns, and even about various vaccines? Facebook has come under fire after it was revealed by Project Veritas that Mark Zuckerberg's social media site has been shadow banning users from expressing their doubts and skepticisms over COVID-19 and in particular the vaccine. In an effort to curb vaccine hesitancy and silence those voices of opposition, the world's largest social media platform has designed a tier system that stifles any doubt or skepticism from being widely shared. According to Project Veritas's recent expose, comments that are restricted are done on the basis of liberty-based, religious-based, personal and political objections, and even medical or scientific objections that focus on the ethics of the development of the vaccine, like the use of fetal tissue. A Facebook spokesperson recently posted, quote, "We proactively announced this policy on our company blog and also updated our help center with this information," end quote. Whatever merits one might think COVID-19 vaccinations hold, this is not an argument for or against that, though there are many good reasons not to take the vaccine. I don't want anyone to be confused about what I'm arguing right now. This is about whether or not voices of opposition and objection have the right to share their opinion and useful information without censorship or cancellation. Though our freedoms in this country are in jeopardy, last I checked, we still live in a free country, and free speech, regardless of what Section 230 of the Telecommunications Act says, should not be censored or canceled. Freedom does not have a tiered system, and there are no second-class citizens, period. It was just over a year ago that publications and websites like Christianity Today and the Gospel Coalition were posting articles directed towards Christians about not succumbing to conspiracy theories concerning the origins of the COVID-19 virus. These were often delivered in condescending tones without any serious appraisal of the evidence or the information. In other words, evangelical elites, often wrong and never in doubt, took an immediate dismissive posture without considering the merits or the truth of said conspiracy theories. And as recently as this week, Dr. Anthony Fauci has finally shared his concerns that this virus was manufactured. So what's the point? The point is that truth is what matters most. We cannot have truth without accountability or transparency. That's why we need to fight censorship and cancellation, especially on sites that are increasingly used for news and media and act as editorial boards. That is where James O'Keefe with Project Veritas is taking on tech giants and media elites in a very bold way. We sit down with James O'Keefe to talk about his recent project and his struggles along the way on the Standing for Freedom podcast, starting now.
I can't emphasize enough how important this is for everyone to see this. Twitter banned me.
You aren't allowed to have voice, and yet Facebook touts itself with promoting people's opportunity to have voice.
I don't think we can lose if we fight back, if we go on offense, or the courage to stay on offense.
Hey, welcome to another exciting episode of the Standing for Freedom podcast, where we defend life, liberty, and truth to ensure the foundations of freedom exist for the next generation. And I'm joined today by someone who needs no introduction, but I'm going to try. It is James O'Keefe. He is the founder of Project Veritas. James, welcome.
Great to be here.
Man, it is so good to see you. I'm always just amazed at what you're doing at Project Veritas. You seem to be on the tip of the spear on every issue facing media, whether it be big tech, whether it be cable news, CNN. You guys are fearless.
Thank you.
You in particular, fearless in your approach. What I'm concerned about, and I think what all the young people are concerned about, is when you think about the cancel culture, you think about the future of freedom,
Right.
in terms of how they engage online, how they are going to live in this world that is dominated, it seems, by the left. Total monopoly. Your oligarchy video, I want to talk about that. I think it's clever. Very, very well done. But what are you doing, I think, to ensure that we have some sense, some modicum of freedom, free speech freedom?
What a generic and profound question. What are we doing? I think the most important thing we can do is to expose them. I think the thing they fear is exposure and transparency. And the thing that separates my team, because we do have a pretty large team at Veritas, we have about 75 people now, and I'm the leader of the team. A very good team of people who share that core value being the tip of the spear. You said that. That's actually one of our core values, to actually be the tip of the spear. People are afraid of being the tip of the spear for good reason, because you invite scorn, you invite attack, to be the mover of things, to the effector of events. People don't want to do that. In fact, I would even say that a lot of people, they think they believe in these principles, but if they actually stand up for the principles they claim to believe in, they'll face retribution. So they do the easy thing, which is to not stand up for the principles they claim to stand up for. We do stand up for those principles, and I think that the number one thing you got to do is you have to expose them visually and disseminate that, distribute that. That's what we do. And with the CNN tapes, that guy was on tape himself talking. You know, it wasn't me, it was him talking, and I was showing those quotes where he talked about, you know, bragging that COVID people dying gives them greater ratings. He was talking about how they were basically an arm of the Biden campaign. Yeah. All the things that we would suspect, but to see him bragging about it, you know, I came to CNN to get Trump out. We quoted him, Twitter banned us for quoting him.
Yeah.
And I think these are, as I said tonight at this event, I think these are principles so fundamental. It's the right of me to quote people and relay to others what they've told me. Yeah. That we can't lose both literally and figuratively if that's the principle that we're standing on, okay? And we won't, we haven't lost a lawsuit because that is the principle that we're standing on. But it's been difficult. It's been expensive. I've had to subject myself personally to all types of discovery into my life. But the thing to do is to expose them. It's what they fear more than anything else. And I think people themselves fear being opened up and being looked at. And I think that's what we have to do. Now, they've banned us from Twitter, but in fact, Project Veritas, I think my colleague is here, and I don't know if we've been trended every week, but we're still trending on Twitter every week. So it's not about being banned on the thing. We've been dealing with this for 50 years. People who are truth-telling. Before Twitter, there was CBS News, and before that, there was the other thing. So it's important to tell stories that are interesting. Yeah. And if you produce content that is interesting, it will effuse its way into whatever the channel may be. Otherwise, you're always going to be complaining and whining and playing defense. You might as well tell interesting stories that force their way into the mainstream media because people are forced to talk about it.
Yeah. When you think about this culture, it seems everything that is dominated, driven by media, particularly the image, so narrative, when you think about how people listen, they listen with their eyes. It's largely what they see. And you're making stories that are compelling because you're showing them, forcing them to look at things that they don't want to see.
Right.
And so being prophetic, having a prophetic voice in this day and age, oftentimes is telling the things in broad daylight that everyone should know is true, but they don't want to believe it. So they listen with their eyes, right, and they think with their feelings. What is it that you find is the most compelling way, I think, of exposing the truth?
I think you said it just now in a very profound way. I think images transfix in a way that words simply don't. And I've seen it. I showed a clip tonight from a deposition in a lawsuit where the woman quite literally said under oath, "We didn't edit this out." And the lawyer cross-examines and says, "Well, what did you do?" And she said, "We edited it out." There's this sort of cognitive dissonance psychosis that exists with New York Times reporters or media journalists. They call themselves journalists. there's a psychosis, and we have to break that somehow, and that's what we're fighting. I mean, literally, George Orwell's 1984, freedom. I was born in 1984, so I think that's ironic.
It's a good year.
Good year.
Reagan era.
Reagan era. I was born June 28, 1984, and Orwell writes that freedom is the freedom to say 2 + 2 = 4. And you would have thought that would have been some type of cliche or science fiction prediction. No, no. Right now, we are fighting people that believe that would contest that 2 + 2 = 4. Just this week, the New York Times did a hit piece on us, front page hit piece, and other New York Times reporters went on live television and contradicted what that New York Times article said. This comes after I sued the New York Times for defamation. So rather than have shame, humility, print the correction, no, they double down. And the answer to the defamation lawsuit, which the New York Times is required to submit to the court now that we've gotten this far, they admitted in their answer under the court record that they did get the facts wrong. They said it was illegal what that Somali man said and did. But they still haven't updated the article.
Right.
So they admit in court, oh, we got the facts wrong, but the article remains. So there's a lack of shame, there's a lack of decency, and there's a lack of logic. You're asking me how I fight it. I think the first thing to do is to expose it. We're pursuing libel lawsuits right now. That's what we're doing. I don't know if anyone's ever quite done this before. It's expensive, it's tough, but we have to go on offense and we have to be willing to the tip of the spear.
Yeah, very well done. And you are, as you've said, undefeated in these lawsuits. What is it? Let me ask you this. For those who are out there who are lacking in courage, they don't want to speak up, but they feel as though, hey, look, this isn't right. Whatever I'm experiencing, I might be canceled on campus, I might experience something from an employer, I'm afraid of posting something online. What would be your encouragement to them to have courage? What drives you?
I think justice. I think I don't consider myself a political person. That sometimes makes me feel alienated from people in politics. I don't do this because of some desire to sort of get ahead. I don't think the people at Project Veritas want to get ahead or they're ambitious in that way. And if you are ambitious in that way, you probably won't do this because your risk calculation is always going to be not to do anything that would jeopardize your ambitions. And that's true, I would say, generally speaking in politics, people want to avoid doing the right thing almost because the secondary effects of doing the right thing might jeopardize their ability to run for office. So if that's what you want to do, then this is not for you. If you want to, I think that courage is perhaps fundamentally incompatible with the political imperative in politics. It's just the way it is.
Right.
I've seen good, I'm not going to name names, I've seen good politicians refuse to do the right thing because if there's a marginal risk to them doing the right thing. So it doesn't make any sense to me. But I don't ever intend to run for office. Our mission is to expose and to educate. But I think underlying your question is a question about fear. And I think that the reason is people are afraid. And I think that, I don't know who said this, but a very wise man once said to me that awe cannot live in fear, or should not live in fear. Awe cannot live in fear. And I know this to be true. And I am afraid. I get what I'm up against probably now more than I ever have. I understand that, especially in the last couple months, because I realize my whole life I've been fighting, maybe I'll get there. And then suddenly I realize, oh my goodness, I may win this lawsuit. And the implications of that are staggering, actually, for society. Therefore, I realize what I'm up against, but then I also realize I'm a little afraid. And then after that, I realize, but I can't make decisions based upon my fear. So when I get deposed or when I get cross-examined, the whole point is to terrify you.
Yeah.
And then I have to force myself not to say things or make decisions based upon whatever fear that I have. It's a very hard thing to do. And I think when I got started at around 19 years old, I quickly realized this does not come natural to me, to confront these people and ambush them and try to ban Lucky Charms on the ground they're racist against Irish people. But it's the right thing to do, and I believe so passionately in it that I will do it despite my fears. Yeah. And in the beginning, I think it's difficult and perhaps scarce, but once you demonstrate to other people that it can be done, there's a legion of people, there's an army of whistleblowers now coming to Project Veritas, people that believe that they too can do it. And it's important that we don't surrender or stop so that we can set an example for those people.
Two things in follow-up to that. I think about, obviously, it's cost you tremendously. Talk a little bit about that, and then also, as you have been able to grow this organization, you've inspired people, obviously, to step out. You have whistleblowers everywhere. You reported something
over
like
100.
Well over 100, and many organizations that are embedded in these organizations, and they're obviously encouraged to step out. So how are you emboldening people to step out? But the first part is the cost. What does this cost you?
Well, I mean, it has been hard. I could have been a lot worse. I think I was incarcerated 10 years ago. I was arrested by the FBI. I was falsely accused, and that was a traumatic situation. I wrote a book about it. It's called Breakthrough. There's a few chapters about it. I learned a lot, though. I had to go through that because it was the only way that I could have gotten, we could have gotten to where we are right now. So it was a false accusation, and I spent 3.5 years under federal supervision, and that's how Project Veritas was formed, because I couldn't travel, I couldn't move, so it forced me to branch out. And then the lawsuits on defense, many lawsuits on defense, trials, discovery. We've won a lot of these things in federal court on summary judgment. We've been vindicated by federal judges, and then there's been a lot of things that we've been through, and I could tell a lot of war stories. But I think the thing that I've learned is that by going through these things, people trust us more than they would if I had not gone through them. Mm-hmm. So perhaps there's a reason why we went through them. And I think a lot of the whistleblowers come to us because there's no place. I say there's nowhere else for them to go. So the individual inside ABC News who came to us with the Jeffrey Epstein story, that was the video where the anchor was caught on a hot mic and she was saying that ABC spiked her story or canceled her story on Epstein to protect the Clintons and the British royal family. She's on a commercial break saying this, and the whistleblower had recorded this and sent it to us. And I had this really amazing moment with him. I won't tell you who this person is because the person still works for ABC News. And they said to me, "There's nowhere else. I can't go anywhere."
Yeah.
There's literally nobody.
Right.
But I trust you guys because you don't back down. And in this current lawsuit with the New York Times, typically when you get past motion to dismiss in a defamation lawsuit against the New York Times, which has only happened a few times, it recently happened with Nick Sandmann against the Washington Post. That was the young man defamed. He settled. I don't know why he settled. He could have deposed those Washington Post reporters. Typically, you're offered a boatload of money. And as I've said publicly, I don't intend to take any money from the New York Times. So it's very important that we don't compromise on our principles and that we fight them all the way to the end. And I think that that's what we have to do. We cannot give an inch to them. And if you operate on that principle, okay, if you don't compromise your sense of ethics, I don't think you can lose.
Yeah, very good. When you think about, this is more of a personal question, what is driving your ideology? Would you define yourself as a conservative? Would you define yourself as a libertarian? Your social ethic, your framework, you mentioned truth and justice, these things being very important to you. Worldview question, what is it existentially that you believe about?
What defines my ideology is the supposition that 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah. So the reality is that obviously the laws of non-contradiction.
Laws of non-contradiction, and my socio-political framework is to prove to the world that reality is the way that it is.
Yeah.
Showing the world for what it is. I mean, the whole purpose of journalism is to get to the bottom of things, is to tell the truth, is to show the truth. And when CNN goes on every day and shows people the opposite of the truth, or manufactures the consent, you can't have a republic, you can't have a democracy which is a republic. And people can't exercise their rights and duties in an intelligent fashion unless they know what's going on. And if people had any idea what was actually going on, in the IRS or the FBI or wherever. I mean, I actually do believe that they would be shocked. Many people don't, but I do believe that the job of a journalist is to play the role of sort of a custodian of conscience, sort of testing and affirming where the boundaries are on the moral order and forging a consensus through truth. The tragedy of modern life is that we don't agree on whether 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah.
So none of this other stuff matters. If we don't agree that the apple is red and 2 + 2 = 4, then what are we doing bickering about all this other nonsense? So the first step is to show people that 2 + 2 = 4. And I mean this sincerely. This happened this past week with the New York Times. They went on TV and contradicted what they wrote in their own article. So we're talking about fundamental, basic
doesn't matter
law of the woman in the deposition saying, I didn't edit the tape. So what did you do? I edited the tape.
Right.
If we're clinging to irrationality like a man clings to his shadow, nothing else matters. If the New York Times can coordinate with Facebook, I got a guy, a Somali American on tape saying, I broke the law, I do not care, 800 per vote, here's all my ballot. If that's banned, and it's true, then what else matters than fighting the media tech alliance? So that's my mission, that's what I believe in. We believe in reality, and showing the reality to the people, veritas to the vulgate, the truth to the people, cinema verite, right? Cinema veritas. We're showing people the way the world really is.
That's good.
Behind the curtain.
Okay, so final question. The end game in all of this. Where do you see this going? If you are successful in this lawsuit, and in others, I assume there's going to be more, what do you see the end game in all of this? Do you see this busting up, or do you see it becoming more authoritarian even than it is now?
You mean the forces that are working against the truth?
That's right.
I think it'll get worse before it gets better. I think it's all fundamentally about giving people hope. I think people feel very hopeless. People feel very cynical. The cynicism of what is what I don't know what you're sensing, but I just get all
it's
this.
everywhere. Yeah.
People just cynical. Sort of the number one question that we get asked is, "What can I do?" Right? What can I do? And Dennis Prager said that, I like his quote where, well, you can fight, you can donate to those who fight, or you can do absolutely nothing.
Right.
Those are your options. You can financially contribute, you can do yourself fight. So those are the 3 things you can do. Not everyone can do this. So rather than me complain about how many people don't have the balls to do it, my mission is to find the 0.0001% of the American population who do have the balls to do it. And in a country of 400, however many million people we have here, that's quite a lot of people. So find me the courage who can do it, go do it. And I think giving people hope is probably ultimately the mission of Project Veritas, is to give people hope by being the custodians of conscience and by being the answer to the question, what can I do? So we have a call center, we have a couple dozen reporters full-time, we have whistleblower program, we have a People's Defamation Defense Fund program. So whatever you want to do, whether it be record your principal, you were defamed and libeled, you want us to represent you, you have an idea and a tip, we're there for you. We're a non-for-profit organization. We're tax deductible. So far, the IRS gave us that tax deduction. Loris Lerner signed it.
You're right.
In 2011, maybe she thought she was signing a Latin book discussion club. Veritas,
so you didn't get
know what it
audited?
Oh, we've been audited.
Okay.
I've been arrested, audited, sued.
Yeah.
So I've been through all that. Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, gave us a hard time. We're in New York State. But we didn't do anything wrong. And I learned some lessons early on with the personally settling a lawsuit with Acorn. That wasn't Project Veritas. I'll never do that again.
And that video probably inspired millions of people. And my wife, off camera, was talking to you earlier. She was working in a nonprofit crisis pregnancy center.
That's right. We were just talking in the elevator. That's
many young women, after seeing that video, and that was the first time I ever was introduced to you and your work, that was what drove hundreds.
Planned Parenthood sent me in 2007. The very first thing I did was with Lila Rose in Los Angeles, where we went into a Planned Parenthood undercover. I was posing as her overage boyfriend. She was underage, statutory rape situation. And Planned Parenthood told me to lie about the age to get an illegal abortion. We put the video on YouTube. Planned Parenthood sent me a cease and desist letter, threatened me with the California Penal Code Statute 632, and I was forced to make a very important decision in that moment as a 22-year-old guy. Either take the video down or double down, and I didn't know what to do, but there was a little voice inside myself that said, you know what, the cease and desist letter, maybe I should publish it. So I got it to somehow to then Bill O'Reilly factors. I didn't really know anyone, but I knew someone who, 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, got it to Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly put Lila Rose on the air in May of 2007. 18-year-old freshman at UCLA, Lila Rose, went on television, and wouldn't you know it, Planned Parenthood backed down and no longer threatened us with litigation. So I learned a valuable lesson as a very young man. The most important thing is to simply run towards the fire.
That's good. And let's end on that one. I think that is so important, is to have courage and to be willing to run in. Thank you for what you're doing. I know that in many ways, I mean, you travel across the country, and beyond just what you do as an organization, obviously you speak to a lot of conservative groups, but you're giving a lot of people courage. And in this moment, I think that spines need to be stiffened. When I think about in evangelical circles, pastors need to be encouraged and need their spines strengthened even in this moment to preach the truth in the midst of one of the largest cancel cultures that we've ever seen, probably in the history of the modern world.
Right.
And so I'm very thankful for what you do, and very appreciative. We need to have you at Liberty.
I would love to come in the fall. Let's try to schedule something.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Well, thank you so much, James, for all you're doing. Really appreciate you being a warrior for truth and for being the tip of that cultural sphere.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate being here.